Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and do you want the new yellow halos on your brand new BMW M4? Let me show you how. All right, so some of the brand new BMWs like the M5 CS and the new M4 CSL have those really cool distinctive yellow halos rather than white. Now, Mashimarho has a great add-on where you can change this and actually change the LED colors actually in the projectors for your headlights. I want to show you how to do it because it's not all that hard. It's going to take a few simple tools. I'm going to walk you through that whole process, and you can add this really distinctive highlight to your car as well. All right, let's get started. All right, guys, so quick introduction to the car here, and let's talk about what this project is going to be. And man, I love this M4. It's absolutely gorgeous, and these new yellow halos are going to be amazing. But there's a couple of things we need to do. There's 2 circuit boards per side, so I'm only going to show one side because the process is going to be exactly the same. So the first circuit board is here underneath this radiator. The other, as you can tell, I've got the wheel off. We have to pull out the wheel liner to get to the back of it right here. So a couple of things really quick. I always say this, so forgive me if you've heard this a lot. Well, you're going to hear it again. Always be super careful with your car up in the air. In this case, I just have one wheel off. I'm only going to do one wheel at a time. If you're using a jack, make sure you're on a level surface and you have a good product. We're not really going to be under the car this time, but I'm always really careful about that because if your car comes down or your jack fails, that can take a really simple project and an easy day and make it really, really bad, okay? So be really careful when you're doing that. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to take your wheel off. That's a 17mm socket. It's a deep socket to take it off. You always want to use like a breaker bar or something similar when your tire's on the ground so you can break those bolts free and then go ahead and just back them off once it's up in the air. Now, when you look here in the wheel well, you can see we have a whole series of 8mm bolts. Now, brand new M4. Wheel well still clean, you gotta love that. So we'll take all of these off and then this wheel liner will come out and we can get to the radiator and where the circuit board is on the back of the headlight right here, okay? So go ahead and get your 8mm, take all those out, we'll take the wheel liner out, and then we'll look to take out the circuit board. All right, y'all, so as you can see, the wheel liner is out. It's about a dozen of those 8mm body panel bolts that BMW uses all the time. No big deal, you just take them all out. Now, what we're looking at is the back of this radiator right here. You've got T20s here and here on either side. You'll take that out and you should be able to take this radiator out. And we're gonna do the same thing to the top, but as you can tell, we couldn't get to this one from above, which is why we had to pull the wheel well liner, okay? So go ahead and take this out and I'm gonna show you how to swap the board out. All right, guys, so as you can tell, the radiator's off and it's unplugged, and I'll show you this in just a second. But there's one bolt right here, a T20, and then there's another right here. It's not this one. It's right up here where it's a little bit hard to see, and it's behind the strut bar. So the trick that I use is I'll use a 1/4-inch ratcheting little wrench, and I'll put my T20 bit into that wrench. It fits up into small spaces, and then I can just ratchet, and we'll pull that bolt out, and it works great. So I'll show you the wrench if you want in just a second, but that's the trick to get into close spaces. Now, as you can see, the board is plugged in right here. There's a little depression tab right here. You press on the tab, and then you back the plug out, and it looks like this. So this is what we're going to do, is we're going to take the existing board off and put a new board in its place. Now, I'm probably going to say this a couple of times, but when we do this, you want to be very, very careful. This is a non-destructive change. You can always swap these back in later for whatever reason, if that's what you wanted to do. So you wanted to be careful taking this off. There's glue underneath. There's a blob of glue holding this down. So what you have to do is very carefully get underneath this. Now, I've seen some folks get some screwdrivers under there and kind of pry on it and get it off, but you want to be really careful when you do this because you don't want to crack the board or break any of the traces if you potentially want to swap it back in later. Okay, so go ahead and get this out and get caught up to this, and then I'll show you about how to take this board out and we'll swap the new one in. All right, guys, so I'm just using a shelf out of my toolbox here as my workspace right at the moment. So I have the board out. Now, I wanted to show this to you kind of as we get through it, and I used an angle pick tool like this. And this glue is pretty famously is really strong, but as soon as it lets go suddenly. So what I did was I worked underneath and got my pick tool underneath the board because, again, if you want to reinstall these, the last thing you want to do is crack the board or mess up any of the traces or anything else like that. So you can still see we've got a little bit of glue residue there, and you can see on the back of the board, which is not that important right at the moment. Now, Keep in mind that the new boards are right and left, so just to make sure, I have the existing board here and I have the new board that I'm going to install, and as you can see, the LEDs are in the same alignment. It would really suck to do all this work and put in the wrong boards in the wrong spots, right? So just make sure that they match up, they physically look the same. Now, I've heard of folks using glue, epoxy, all kinds of different options here on the bottom of the board. I'm just going to use some double-sided 3M automotive adhesive. I have heard that this works really, really well, and you don't have to go through all the curing time and worry about that. Also, as you can tell, the board sits on these really big posts right here. So the board's not going to go anywhere. You just need to keep it in place. Okay, so go ahead and put some adhesive on the bottom, and then I don't have the backing peeled off yet, but as you can tell, it's just going to slide right back into place. Once that's done and it's down securely, you can just go ahead and reinstall it. Plug it right back in, put in the two T20s that secured into place, and then we're going to pull the top radiator. So, all right, guys, so we haven't put the wheel well liner back in yet, but I did promise I was going to show you my little wrench trick here. So like I said, this is a 1/4 inch ratcheting socket, and you can take the T20 bit and just put it into the ratchet, and then you can use this to get into confined spaces. I use this as a cool trick, and it's a great way to reach that bolt that's very hard to reach right here. Now, the good news is the two here on top are very easy to get to. I've already taken them out, and then you just take this radiator and lift. Just be gentle, it will still be plugged in like the other one right there. So again, you want to depress the tab, unplug it, and then you're going to take the board off and replace it with the other one. I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. All right, guys, so as you can see, the board is swapped out and it's ready to be reinstalled. Now, on this, again, I was very careful to make sure that I had the correct board on the right side, and I used a little bit of double-sided adhesive to hold the board down. Now, one thing to think about, you can get to this board a lot easier than the other one. So on this case, you can get the existing board out by taking a shop knife and just very carefully sliding it between the metal, this aluminum, and the board, and then the board will pop free. So super, super easy. Now, the one thing about using the double-sided adhesive when you go through this, and the difference from glue, if you used glue or epoxy, then these are going to be stuck down super hard, which I don't really want to do in case we want to swap these back out later. But if you really torque on this, so if you plug the cable in and you're pulling and pulling and pulling on these, you can pull the board away from the double-sided adhesive, right? So just be gentle when you put these back in. Now, as you can see, there's a gasket here around the outside. Make sure your gasket's still in place. Then all you have to do is just reverse this and put it right back into place. So it really is that simple. Now, we've only done one side in this car. I'm only going to show one side, but we're going to fire the car up now so you can see what it looks like on right and left. But other than that, you're done. All right, y'all. So if I sound really kind of excited about this, I really am. This looks so good. Now, here's the interesting thing that I see. So as I look at my camera, what I see on my camera actually looks a little bit different than what I see to the naked eye. So it may be that my camera's not catching the color quite exactly the same, but here is the passenger side by comparison to the whites on the driver's side. This looks so good, and actually is hugely complementary to the color of this car. This is absolutely fantastic. So, as you can tell, this really isn't that hard. This is a really simple project. Clearly, we've only done one side, and you're just going to duplicate the effort and do it on the other side. Take the wheel off, the wheel well liner, swap out the boards, put the new ones in, and you're good to go. All right, so one last thing that I wanted to point out, because obviously I'm doing one wheel at a time, and you should probably do the same if you have a jack. You have a quick jack, so of course you could do both at the same time. Now, when you put your wheels on, obviously you put your wheel up and you put your lug nuts in, and you can just snug them down with the car in the air. You're going to want to torque it once it's on the ground. So once you have it down, always remember you go in a star pattern across the bolts, right? So you go diagonally across the bolts as you go, don't go in a circle. And it's 140 Newton meters. So make sure that you have a good digital torque wrench or something similar where you can set it exactly and get your wheels tightened down appropriately. Okay, so if you haven't done the other one yet, go ahead and go do your other wheel, and if not, you're done. All right, guys, all done. So go ahead and clean up and put your tools away. And you can tell this is not a hard project to do at all. It only takes a few simple tools. Hey, I want to give a huge shout out to Mashimarho for making such a fantastic product that is so easy to install. And talk about dramatic difference on the car. This really looks just gorgeous. And it's something you should really take a look at for your BMW as well. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please make sure to click like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference to my channel, and I have a ton of content I can't wait to bring to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.